It's a beautiful day to have a beautiful day. GM on this beautiful day. Good morning to Web3 with Morocco, Sep and Mando. Tune in live at 10:30 and it's all on Road Radio. It's a beautiful day to have a beautiful day. GM Road Radio.
GM, everyone. Today you have me as your host, Ovi, because Farouk is stuck in Charleston somewhere. Mando is stuck in Tenerife somewhere. So you have the most commonly, most well-known as the most enthusiastic of the three co-hosts here leading the show today. So GM, everyone, welcome to Monday, the 13th of March. We've had a pretty big weekend. It's a pretty mental day today. So if you're still standing and listening to this after like what feels like 2 years now of pretty crazy times in crypto and NFTs, then congratulations. But welcome to the show, everyone. And GM, Farouk, and Mando, if you guys are there.
GM, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah. GM, man, how's it going?
I might lose signal. I might lose signal. I'm driving in Tenerife, but
and I'm boarding.
It's okay.
And I'm boarding a plane in any time now, so you may want to have a backup host.
Great.
Yeah, why don't you make us both co-hosts, and we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, no, that's right. I'll just speak to myself, and then I'll go fuck myself. It's fine.
It kind of feels like we're heading that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does sound like that.
I was like, oh, I won't work that much this week. First day for can't make the show. I'm just like, oh, I've got to do the show.
I got rugged by Delta. I'm sorry. I got rugged, stuck in Charleston yesterday night. I went to the airport from the Beeple event, exhausted, only to find out that I had no plane to go home. So I had to spend an extra night and fly at 7 a.m. this morning. And I'm in JFK waiting for the next flight to Montreal. I just want to get home.
Well, there's no rest for the wicked, as they say. There's always going to be a bit of work to be done somewhere.
I'm loving the vibe of this show already. It's almost like smooth FM.
Me too. I love that. I mean, Ovi's. I'm full thread. I'm on my thread guy mode today. I got the wired headphones. And I gotta say, hearing OSF like that is pretty soothing.
It's very, very kind of you say. Very kind of you to say. Well,
it is. I think you should do like a 2 a.m. late night show going forward.
I'll host a late night show one day. Why not?
Just play R&B songs and Savage Garden.
Just smooth jams. Smooth jams at 2 a.m. with OSF.
Yeah, it does feel like that's where your radio career is headed.
Well, just
how was your weekend, Ovi? I don't think we spoke.
Yeah, it was a fun one. It was definitely a fun one. Before we get cracking, I just want to remind everyone our shows right now are sponsored and powered by Fair XYZ. Be sure to check out the pinned tweet and explore the gamified drops they have with conditions to buy. Something that I actually think looks pretty cool. You can have like a passcode to mint. You can set all these different conditions that people need to meet in order to actually mint an NFT or a collection. So I think I need to explore that for myself, but definitely worth checking out if you guys check the pinned tweet.
And by the way, I noticed this morning that the Mint for Change stuff that they did for International Women's Day last week, it actually revealed. I got a bunch of dope art. So if you minted that, definitely check it out because I got some really nice stuff.
What did you get?
Didn't Iona end up getting the Camilla piece, which just felt slightly rigged by Iona there.
Yes.
Yeah, we lost.
I think we lost Farouk.
We lost him.
Yeah, I'm boarding, boys. I'm boarding. I love you guys.
We lost him. Should we get into it?
Let's get into it. So, let's run through the topics. I think that's the next thing we do usually, right?
Oh yeah. So,
I'm usually not listening at this point, so I don't know.
I'm interrupting Smooth FM with Ovi Farouk.
I'm dying. This is so good. Oh my god.
So first up, we have the DGens market report. The next thing we have is SVB resolved? I think we'll probably end up speaking about both of those things at the same time because they're so related. We had I guess it was the reveal of the Yuga Labs ordinals. So we had some interesting reactions from that we will discuss and get into. We were going to talk about the Beeple event at Charleston. I guess if Farouk is in the air, we're going to have to just talk about what we saw on Twitter and not actually have someone who was at the event. But if anyone was actually at the event, feel free to hit me. Who's listening? Feel free to hit me up with a DM, and we'll have you on later on when we get to that part of the show. And then at the end, we have our friends at legoodsociety who's going to talk about this big digital art contest on some big billboards, which I think is an interesting opportunity for a lot of different artists out there. And as usual, the show is powered by Fair XYZ. And with that, I think is the moment where I play this tune.
Daily Market Report. Brought to you by Rug Radio. So Tiff, what's the word?
Hey, GM, everyone. So usually I just make this thing up when I come to speak about it. Today is the first day where I think I've probably spent at least the last hour or 2 hours thinking about what I'm going to say because things are just moving so quickly and aggressively. But I'll try and do a little recap of what happened over the weekend and where we stand now. I think that we sold off on Friday. Crypto was going, I think we hit as low as 1380 on ETH and 19.5K on Bitcoin because people were worried about whether Silicon Valley Bank would be saved. Now, you have to break that down to two different things. There's the perspective of the bank itself being saved, so the equity holders, the debt holders, and then there's the perspective of the deposits being saved. I think given the contagion effects everyone was worrying about, the latter is the thing that was more important. And it looks like the latter is the thing that will happen. Late on Sunday, we got some news that there's going to be some sort of emergency loan program, I think is maybe the best way to describe it in simple terms, by the Fed, which will actually guarantee everyone's deposits up to 100%. Now, I don't think that means you'll get your 100% straight up. I think actually that amount is 50%, but they're finding ways to ensure that people will get the deposits in time. I think the big problem you have here is actually the recovery for the claims on these deposits, I think, will be very high. The market expects it to be very high. Most hedge funds have actually been bidding about 80 cents on the dollar for them, but there's a big liability mismatch, right? Like if you're a startup and you have monthly expenditures of I don't know, 100 grand, 200 grand, and you're only able to get 50 grand or 100 grand out the bank, you're going to go bankrupt in 2 months, and it doesn't really help you to get that money back in 2 years or 3 years. And bankruptcy proceedings can take a very long time before you get your money back. So it's been a big liability mismatch, and so the Fed has stepped in to try and mitigate that. So on the back of that, we started the day with a bit of a rally on stocks. Stocks then sold off. Traditional equities have been pretty heavy since then, especially bank stocks. Bank stocks are all down a huge amount. First Republic is down 50 or 60%, which is another bank that's affected. The real big mover in traditional markets is interest rates. So the 2-year interest rate has moved from what was basically 5% on Friday all the way down to now 4%. So that's a 100 basis point move in the space of 2 or 3 days, which is insane. That's a huge, huge, huge move. We haven't seen this much volatility since last year. I don't even think we saw a bigger move as this in the space of 1 day or 2 or 3 days. So that's a huge, huge move in interest rates. There's a big steepening in the curve. So the shorter dates are moving much more aggressively than the longer dates. But even at the 10-year point, we've moved all the way to 3.45% from 4% that we were at on Friday. So again, that's a huge, huge, huge move. And the thought process and the idea behind that is, look, SVB, the main issue that they had is they owned a ton of government bonds, and they had a ton of it in the available for sale portfolio and also the hold to maturity portfolio. And back in 2 or 3 years ago, they were earning 1% yield on it, which at the time was great. But when interest rates sold off, government bonds moved down in principle. So if they had invested I don't know, $1 billion into it, they probably had 50% of that wiped out, probably even more than that. So they were sitting on these massive losses because of the Fed increasing interest rates. So if the Fed carries on increasing interest rates, it will create more losses for SVB, for the assets they haven't liquidated. It will create more losses for First Republic, and it will create more losses for any other bank out there who has a large amount of government bonds. And I think, look, most of these guys were banking on the Fed pivoting at some point this year and interest rates coming lower and then coming out the woods. But when you have a bank run and you have people trying to take out their deposits, and because of the way banking works, it's all fractional reserve banking, it caused the situation we have today. So interest rates are rallying because the Fed is in a tough position now. They can't, I mean, they can increase interest rates, and some people that I speak to think they still will increase rates next month or this month. But I think they're in a very tough spot, because if they do increase rates, it's going to create even more pain, and you have a real risk of some sort of collapse of the banking or financial system. So look, we have CPI tomorrow, from which we get inflation. If that number comes in low, then I think the markets will rally, because it will give the Fed, it will make it easier for them to not actually increase rates. But if the inflation comes high, then the Fed's in a really tough spot. And I think they really have to choose from the lesser of two evils, whether they want to have medium-term inflation, which is going to be very sticky, or whether they want to have like a collapse of the banking system. And personally, I think inflation is actually the lesser of two evils. But one thing that we have seen is we've seen crypto really rally hard. Like Bitcoin's at 23.4K, ETH's at 1650. So we're up. I mean, we've reversed all the losses, and we're up probably something like 10 to 15% off the lows. And in the majors, the altcoins are lagging a little bit. And when you think about this, it's actually pretty medium to long-term bullish crypto, right? Like, you can't put your money in a bank. You can't put your money in stable coins. Like, it's a very strong use case of Bitcoin and also ETH. You obviously have price volatility in Bitcoin and ETH, which you don't have in the other things, but self-custodying and those things are actually arguably the safest place to actually put your money. So I think that's part of the reason we're rallying. The other part of the reason, I think, is interest rates. Like 2021, we had this huge rally in crypto and altcoins and NFTs because we were in an environment of not only inflation, which is what everyone's like, Bitcoin's an inflation hedge, but I think that's a mistake to think just that. I think Bitcoin performs well in the environment where you have inflation, but you also have low interest rates. And that's what we had in 2021. That's not what we had in 2022. We had high interest rates. But there is a good chance now that the Fed actually lowers interest rates, and you do get back into an environment with inflation plus lower interest rates. And I think that's another reason that could explain the crypto rally and this big outperformance versus equities this morning. So look, these are all, the markets are very, very volatile right now. The VIX, which is a measure of volatility, is at 30 now. That's up 20% on the day. So I think things are going to move around a lot today and over the next few days as we get more information and see how widespread this crisis is. But that's my best attempt at explaining everything that's happened in the last 24 hours or so.
Yeah, look, I think that summed it up pretty well. I think a lot has happened. So, I mean, if you'd basically gone to sleep on Thursday and you woke back up on Sunday evening, you may have felt like nothing had really changed. ETH was kind of back where it was. Stablecoins basically were back to where they were, and it was just a strange scenario but so much has changed in macro over that very short period. And I think the main one is, like you said, interest rates are going to be are the main one that has moved. I do think this is like a really pivotal day, and Friday was as well, in what we've seen over the last 2 years of general policy. You could feel it, right? There was just so many big things happening, and so now it feels as though the Fed is going to have to do kind of a 180 on what it was doing. So the Fed had been raising rates, just to give backdrop, as Ovi said, raising rates for like the last 18 months, essentially. And there's an old saying which goes, the Fed keeps on raising rates until they break something. This is them breaking something. And the thing that they broke was a bunch of banks, which they weren't really paying attention to. Like last Wednesday, Powell was on stage in front of the Senate saying that he didn't see any risk in the banking sector. They had massive unrealized losses. Losses that, due to a regulatory accounting fuck up, meant that they didn't even have to report them in a way that made them so obvious. And that just made a bunch of banks, both commercial banks and regional banks suddenly very exposed to bank runs. And that's what you started to see. You saw now I think it's 3 banks over the last week that have gone. It's around 350 billion of assets, and it looks like First Republic might be in trouble already today. So the Fed, who had been raising rates, suddenly now has to basically come through and protect all the depositors at these banks, which is just basically what they were doing in 2008. It's a very different sort of scenario. These are actually, in many ways, banks which are not operating that poorly. This isn't a subprime debt thing. This isn't a CDO squared stuff. This is just banks that were doing normal borrowing and lending practices, and just got caught in the move in rates, and they perhaps hit it more than they should have. So this isn't something where you can lock away the whole of the banking industry. This is just endemic, and probably really more like a pandemic. This is across the whole of the world that banks have been doing this. And suddenly now the Fed has got to decide, right, well, we can't really keep raising rates because of the precarious nature that they're in. The outcome of this is slightly strange because you have an outcome now where the Fed's going to have to stop raising rates. They were raising rates to try and combat inflation, which has also been a big issue for people, and could spiral here. So you could now be in a scenario where rates don't rise as much. Inflation probably continues at the same or maybe even a higher rate now, or at least for longer. And the banking system, the fractional banking system that we spoke about on Friday, again looks like one big massive fraud, and maybe the confidence gets lost. In that world, bonds do very well because suddenly, and this is what we've seen today, interest rates have completely ripped. Stocks, it's a little bit difficult because stocks, if you own a bank stock today, or if you own even a growth stock, it's a little bit precarious because if inflation continues very hot for a while, that could really hurt a bunch of different parts in the market, including mainly consumer spending. And if you're in a bank stock, you're sitting there going like, well, the bank stocks of 3 banks just got wiped out, as did all the bondholders. This isn't good. So what you've seen today is a bunch of bank stocks go a lot lower. The stock market is kind of bouncing between up and down because it doesn't really know what to do. But for crypto, I think all of those 3 things are good. I don't know if you agree with this, Ovi, but like lower rates, the idea that I don't know, the fractional banking system looks like a fraud again, and higher inflation potentially for longer, I think makes crypto look good. And what you've seen is gold has gone up a lot today, and this is digital gold. That's what people try to say about Bitcoin, and I think that will continue now. I think Bitcoin might the value principles that drive crypto here will be a lot similar to the value principles that drive gold, and I think Bitcoin and ETH could do very well. I'm not too sure about other alts, but I think this is I put like a theoretical bull case out on Sunday about why we might be rallying, and all of these things seem to be kind of happening right now. Rates are ripping. You've had they came out with a 25 billion basically bailout fund. That's going to have to increase, no doubt in my mind. That's going to if First Republic goes, it's going to have to go towards 100, maybe even more. And they've also made sure that all depositors are fine, which protected some of the stable coins. Remember, that was kind of what everyone was scared about on Friday night, that Circle had its money in both Signature Bank and in SVB. Both those banks have failed over the weekend, but deposits were protected. So it is a strange scenario, but I do think that if you kind of look at the end game does seem positive for crypto here in my eyes. I don't know if that's just bull posting, but it does.
Yeah, I agree. It's a weird one to say because obviously we're all long crypto and we own loads of it, and I'm always trying to think as objectively as I can and not just like with my bags. But categorically speaking, like the 3 things that you mentioned are all medium to long term positive crypto. I guess the thing that is bearish for crypto is you could see a situation where you have this huge sell off in risk assets and equities could move a lot lower. Bank stocks are already a lot lower today, and crypto trades like a risk asset, so it could move a lot lower in line with that. But from like a medium to long term standpoint, I think it's like really, really bullish crypto. And to be honest with you, it's interesting to see the way that things are performing today. Like crypto is up today, stocks are basically unchanged. It looks like maybe even down a little bit on the S&P 500, and bank stocks are getting destroyed. So it kind of shows you what the market is thinking. I mean, even Coinbase stock is up 6%. So it kind of tells you what the market is thinking. But we'll see. For me, it's too early to judge whether it holds.
It is too early.
Yeah.
Because I agree with you. Growth stock, the S&P could go down 20% here, in my opinion. It could go down a lot, and whether that drags crypto with it remains to be seen. But I think crypto outperforms in that scenario pretty strongly, I imagine. Because the reason why it's going down will be because inflation is running hot, and/or there's more issues in the banking sector, which the Fed is going to have to step in to alleviate.
Yeah, I agree with that. But yeah, there we are. That's where we are now. So I don't know. Like, I have no idea what's going to happen over the next 24 hours. But it feels like this crypto rally is persistent, and we'll see what happens tomorrow with the inflation number. The expectation for inflation tomorrow is 6%, and last month was 6.4%. Remember, last month we actually came in higher than expectations. So we'll see how that goes and how that affects the market. And the expectation for core is 5.5 versus 5.6 last month.
What do we want for that?
You want a low number.
Now? Like the Fed, but do you? The Fed isn't going to keep on raising rates. Like, it's not raising rates. There's no doubt in my mind. Like, or at least they might do one left.
But it's better to have a low number knowing that they're not going to increase rates, and have a high number knowing that they're not going to increase rates, right?
Yeah.
See what I mean?
I just don't know. Like, I do think the high inflation narrative is good for crypto and bad for everything else. I guess I see what you mean. Like, low inflation is probably good for everything at this stage. But yeah, even with high inflation, look, crypto can look like a very good play here, right? With ETH as the deflationary asset. Bitcoin,
yeah, I see what you mean. Like, if you get another 2021 where they're like, well, we're fucked, we have to keep it. Look, we have to lower rates or keep them lower.
Exactly.
Inflation. But the thing is, 2021, you had rates up still close to zero, and inflation was like between 4 and 6%. And right now we're at 6, but I don't think it'll go higher this year. But 2024 it could go a lot higher, and rates are a lot higher, so it's not quite the same. We're coming at it from the other way around. Yeah,
we are. Look, I think you don't want to be one of those people who just says, "Oh, everything's bullish for Bitcoin," but this is the scenario, right? This is a lot of what people have spoken about in the medium term as why crypto will prove bullish, because decentralized stores of value, like, they won't get a bank run on Bitcoin. You won't get a bank run on Ethereum. Even the stable coins, I know it didn't look great with Circle this weekend, but the actual reason for it was because of the traditional banking system. And I think all of this is proving that these decentralized stores of value are better as you see these sort of things explode as interest rates go up, and their head.
There you are.
Yeah, we lost Mando.
I think he's back.
We got
you. I think we just lost the last 10 seconds of what you said. Okay, now we've officially lost him, right? Oh, he's back.
I think I'm here.
You're here.
Yeah, I was just saying that. Just decentralized stores of value just are proving more valuable as rates have risen. You've seen all these like pockets of leverage, or pockets of, I don't know, malpractice have started to show up, and in most of them it feels like crypto, at least the ones in TradFi, crypto as a decentralized store of value isn't as precarious as having your money in a bank, particularly a regional bank or a commercial bank, or trusting basically in like fiat systems to protect your wealth. So and also everything just feels like a scam, you know. Like I can't imagine if I'm waking up in the US right now, I feel great. Like the US taxpayer has just bailed out a VC tech bank. It's like it's a VC big tech bank being bailed out by essentially. I know that they've tried to say it isn't the U.S. taxpayer, but it's been guaranteed by the U.S. taxpayer. How can you not like crypto after that? So it's like everything that is people kind of rail against having too much power, too much influence, and the idea that the little guy has to pay the bill for it. It's just happened in one fell swoop, and it's probably going to happen to a bunch of other banks as well. This is I know it just makes you feel like, yeah, the system is crap. Like why as a taxpayer would I have to pay back this, or why do I have to trust in bailouts, or why do I have to bail out people who are taking way more risk than me? Like this bank, SVP, it was making loans to like mid-tier startups with your money, right? Like it's not like it was, I don't know, some whiter than white bank. Like they were all taking risk. It didn't even have a head of risk. It sounded like for the last 3 months, and yet you have to bail it out. It just, I don't know. It all just stinks to me, and I feel as though there's going to be a big backlash when this all settles again. The first move here is just to protect all depositors, but then the backlash will be like, this is just a terrible system again. And I think all the reasons why people feel disenfranchised with the U.S. quote unquote system in general, I think will also mean that crypto does well.
You'd think so. Let's see what happens. I guess we've had a good start today. Let's see what happens over the next few days. But
where even is ETH? I'm driving.
I see it at 1650 on my screen.
Wow.
So we've literally reversed like all the losses, and we're actually up a little bit. I think we were at like 1570 or 1550 before this whole thing collapsed. We're actually above that, which is pretty insane. And Bitcoin's at 23.5. So man,
that's a big move. I'm not trying to FOMO.
Move.
I'm not trying to FOMO people in. I do think stocks, like I said, I think stocks could go a lot lower here, but I do think crypto, you're going to see big divergence now.
Yeah. It's kind of tough. I mean, you could have really like just chopped yourself up over the last few days, right? Like, number one, you could have been short. Yeah, I mean, I did. Yeah, you could have been short crypto. You could have shorted crypto over the weekend, and then like you'd get completely blown out right now. You could have sold your ETH for USDC and then been down 10% on that momentarily, but maybe even sold that. Like, there's so many different things you could have done which just destroyed you, which like not even like you could. It's difficult to have the foresight for it completely, but yeah, it's kind of pretty insane. I sold my ETH at like I sold some ETH at 1408, and I ended up buying it back at like 1500.
No way. You broke your rule number one.
I broke my rule, sold into the FUD.
Yeah. Obi full on panicked. Actually,
I was having full on panic.
No, I did. I did too. I have to admit, like on Saturday, I was for the Friday night for the first time. I actually felt very scared.
Obi never panics though. He like never panics. But on Saturday morning, he fully called us all up. I was like, "What should we do with all this?" And like it when you start questioning stable coins,
yeah,
crypto can get really ugly.
That's the thing.
There's no doubt about it.
That's exactly it.
But
that's what caused me to panic. It was waking up seeing USDC at 89 cents. I was like, "Fuck, this is not good."
Dude, when your own dry powder you can't even use your own dry powder to buy anymore. Because guys, this Saturday morning for you was when I was panicking. Because for me it was 3 a.m, and I was with Deez and Benny and Loxley and G Money, and we're sitting around a table talking about this. And I'm here like, what the fuck? Because like my dry powder is in USDC, but if your dry powder is not worth much, you're like, what am I doing? So it's super scary for a moment.
I bought a lot of DAI at the when it was lower, just because I felt like DAI was better collateralized even than USDC. But then I did not predict the ETH rally until it went to like 1500, and I was like, what is going on here? Why does this make sense? And then I did that, I did the both sides, bear and bull argument of what was going on. It just seemed obvious to me that the bull side was probably going to play out, and then you kind of see it. But again, I didn't put anything else in. I just felt like it was still very precarious to judge. So well done if you traded ETH well this weekend. I think you had to have a lot of guts to buy it when it was trading at 1400 and you had stable coins trading at 88 cents.
Yeah, I felt like it. Like I've always said, 1200 was my level to buy, and I was just like, man, like I can't believe ETH is only down 10% based on everything that's happened right now. That's what I was thinking. But I guess we kind of know why, given the discussion we just had. So
this is the thing. It's like I always find this is that when something doesn't make sense in markets, I always try and play it out like a chess. Like what is going to be what's going to happen next, and then what's going to happen after that, and then you can sometimes work out why. Because you're always behind, right? You're always behind the smartest hedge fund or the smartest correlation account, and you can maybe just catch it like midway through a move when things don't make sense. That's always the best thing to do. But yeah, I mean, this weekend was a joke. To work out what the end game was going to be in various different scenarios is always going to be very difficult.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's pretty interesting what's going to happen from here on now. I don't even know, to be honest with you. It's kind of like unforeseen. It's kind of like what's the right term for it? Like price discovery, like never seen before circumstances right now we're in. So it's pretty insane.
I think what you'll see, and this is exactly the it's so bad it's good that we were talking about on Friday. I think what you'll see is the Fed will have to massively increase the 25 billion fund that it already said. I think First Republic might go today or tomorrow, and maybe one other bank forces them into that scenario. I do think that means the stock market probably goes lower, though it's still very difficult to say. And I think the other issue is that this isn't just a US thing. Like this is a Europe thing, this is a UK thing, this is a Japan thing. So what you might end up seeing is this style of crisis starts being exported to other nations around the world, and that could lead to a sovereign crisis for countries and which are far less wealthy, well supported than the US. Like this could happen in Europe tomorrow, and probably happen in a much worse way with much less dry powder to deal with it.
Yeah, it's kind of insane. All right, should we move on to NFTs? Are you going to be able to do the NFT section given you're driving, or do you want me to like read out the?
Maybe you should do it because I haven't been following. I know it was a bit of a bloodbath on the weekend, but I don't know if everything's rebounded.
Okay. Shall I play your jingle anyway, just so you, like it feels like it's you?
Yeah. Why don't you impersonate me for the next?
All right. Well, apparently we sound exactly the same, so it shouldn't be too hard.
Who is the man, macro daddy of the land? Can you dig it?
So NFTs, it was a tough weekend. I think most floors were down something like 5 to 10%, maybe even more in some cases. You had this like trio of NFTs which were maybe formerly considered as blue chips. I don't know if they still are. I like to refer to them as the fallen angels, but they comprise Moonbirds, Doodles, and CloneX, and they had a tough weekend. I think Moonbirds right now it's almost back up to a 5 ETH floor, but I think we dropped as low as 4.1 or 4.2. Right now, CloneX is at 4.33, Doodles is at 4.4. So those three, which are the three big NFT projects that like raise a lot of money at big valuations, where I guess CloneX was actually bought by Nike in their case, they seem to continue to struggle. Everything else, having had a very tough weekend with like volumes being very low, I think is up a little bit today. the marketplace volumes right now are just 48 million in the last 24 hours. So that's probably about 40 to 50% lower than it usually is. So volumes are quite low right now. Blur still has 60 to 70% market share. So it's maintaining that market share. But after what seemed like a very tough weekend and what felt like we were going to go all the way to zero, it's quite impressive, I think, to see things bounce back. And I don't know, maybe a bunch of Blur farmers sold things and got taken out their risk a little bit. And some of the selling pressure subsided. I think the big one I think was the Gitcoin NFT, which I think Machi has almost sold all of his NFTs there now. I think I saw something he had maybe like 3 or 5 of them left, and he probably monetized maybe like 1,000 or 1,500 ETH lost there. So that was definitely,
I think it was 900
ETH loss. Yeah, so that was another interesting one. But I think that's kind of it NFT wise. We had the ordinals. Was it a reveal of the ordinals? I guess it was, because it happened after the auctions had finished. But we had that reveal, which we're about to talk about, which I think there seems to be some mixed opinions on. And I think that's kind of it. NFT world. I don't know if there's anything I'm missing or not.
No, I don't think this is happening, because the thing is, like, when everything happened over the weekend, there was a massive crash on most floors, and so there hasn't been enough time for anything to happen, right? So aside from Ordinals, which is the Yuga Labs 12-fold, which is a conversation right now, it's mostly just recovery on all fronts.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's kind of it. So to be honest with you, I'm impressed that we're not lower in NFTs, and I'm impressed that we held up the way we did all of last year. But when you have something like this and it feels like everything's going to crash, and NFTs just like, I don't know, just rebound the way they did this morning, I think it's very impressive.
Yeah, look, I think a lot of stuff did crash, but the resilient stuff makes you just think, wow, like these are possible to like run through a brick wall, this sort of stuff. Like Punk's not moving, Bored Ape's not moving, Fidenza's not really moving. It was obvious which ones were outperforming versus the ones that weren't. And you do kind of think that the holders here, they've seen the whites in the eyes of sell-offs time and time again now, and this one was bad. Like if you're calling me up on a Saturday morning, it's bad. And no one really budged that much. I think right in saying that some people even thought it was best just to put their money into like floor punks or floor Bored Apes, because decentralized JPEG owners are slightly better than having your money in some stablecoin that you can't trust.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, I think people just like collecting NFTs, right? It's become a different thing compared to everything else. I don't know. I guess if we're talking about this whole like crypto performing well and the inflation narrative, etc., then it's beneficial for NFTs as well. So,
I mean, if anything, punks to me. So when I was panicking on Friday night, I had 3 choices. Go to USDT, but I was going to take a 6-figure loss, so I didn't do that. Go to DAI, which I did, or buy punks. And I almost just went ahead and bought like 5 to 6 punks, just as like a hedge on what's happening. It's funny that I went towards that, because that was my first thought. It's like punks are like kind of like this stable coin, and if you're bullish on the space and what's happening, it's like punks is kind of your go-to. Speaking of which, I saw you pick up quite the crypto punk this morning.
I did, yeah. I mean, 2 things that I wanted to buy were a punk and a Fidenza, and Fidenza were down a lot, so I was able to pick up a couple of Fidenzas. But I've been looking at punks for a while, for maybe like 4 or 5 months, and I was trying to get the one that I bought today. I was trying to get it on on a cheaper deal, I guess, but I think the guy wouldn't budge, so I just basically bit the bullet and bought it. But it's a cool one. It has like 3D glasses and an earring and stuff. But I just wanted to have. I just think there are some things out there that you kind of just have to own and that have the best chance of aging very well, and they won't outperform every single NFT. Like some NFTs will massively outperform them, because I don't think a punk or a Fidenza are like 100x trades, but if you're like passionate about collecting, I think these are just things that are always going to have great historical and cultural value. So For me, that's another one that will go into the vault, and hopefully I'll never have to sell it. Keeping the same PFP though, not changing that.
Yeah, your vault's looking pretty good now.
Well, my vault's two
I think
punk, two fidenzas, and loads of rec guys. So loads of rare rec guys.
I like the look of it. Yeah, did you have the urge to get into like a bunch of different NFTs over the weekend? Did you? I mean, you were thinking even of selling like even more ETH at one stage. I didn't know if you were like you preferred the NFT trade even over that trade.
Yeah, I was really thinking of selling every bit of ETH that I had because I thought it could be a big risk off me. Obviously, I'm glad I didn't do that and spent some time to think about it a bit more. I do think when I was thinking, I was like, well, shit, I can't. Even if I sell my ETH, like, what am I going to buy? Like, USDC's volatile, DAI's volatile. You can put it into Tether, but Tether has its own issues or its own FUD. So I don't really feel like super safe in that. I guess I can convert it all back to fiat, but then you have to like go through your centralized exchange and pay fees and stuff. And if you want to go back, it's like it's a big effort. So then I thought about NFTs, and I was like, well, actually, like if you buy like good NFTs, and it's not easy to do because like not you can't punks are what a 17th floor, so not everyone can just go out there and be like, oh yeah, I just buy a punk and store my money there. It's not an easy thing to do. But I do think like the NFTs that behave more like art will end up being good stores of value, and I think punks are that. And I do think I've been looking at punk trades for a while. I think people actually think about it more in USD terms than they do in ETH terms, just looking at the trades. But I do think it's like it is probably a good store of value. Like I think the reason why they have value is not because of any particular creator executing a roadmap. They are known as pieces of art and piece of culture, and that's it. And you can never take that away from them. So I think that's why I ended up spending that ETH on that. I was like, well, I can keep this ETH, but I'm still not really that sure. At least I think a punk is a safe bet. But I mean, I'm touching wood when I say it's a safe bet because at the end of the day, it's still a JPEG.
Yeah, I see what you mean. In some ways, if they're looked at in USD value, though, they might not perform as well. But I mean, particularly the rares, right? I see what you mean. But I guess it's a better hedge. It's like a less aggressive play, I would say. I mean, ETH is just. I just had a look at it now. 1680.
Jeez. Oh my god.
This thing's just still going.
What the fuck?
Yeah, I just looked at it now. This is a pretty wild move. I don't really know. Like, it's not. Would you put a ceiling on this move? Like, is there some level where you think it's just? I don't know. It feels as though it's difficult to say when something's down that much that it should top out at any sort of level. I don't even know like if there's a technical chart to it. You shouldn't really be FOMOing in at 1680, I feel like, given it's moved like 15% in the course of 24, 48 hours, but it does feel like crypto could this feels different to all the other times,
doesn't it?
Let's just put it that way. Because this is such a pivotal moment. Like, the last 3 days have just been so pivotal that this sort of a move feels like not one where it's it's going to top out at X because stocks are going to do this, or that Powell's going to say something. This feels like you can kind of see where this is going, but maybe I'm completely wrong.
I mean, we have all the reasons for why it should be higher. It's just a weird one. It's weird to see it play out. Like, it's weird because if you're long crypto and you're like, yeah, these are the reasons why I'm long crypto, but those reasons always become a bit of a meme because everyone just keeps saying them and it never really happens. So when it eventually does happen, you're a bit like, wow, this is insane. And I think that's kind of what it's like right now. Like, there are rational explanations as to why it's higher, right? But it still feels really incredulous when you actually see it happen, I think. But yeah, it's insane. It's basically at the highs of the year, right? He's at the year-to-date highs.
Yeah, roughly. I think he got just above 1700 at one stage, right? But that felt like a response to a gradual decrease in rate, or like the rate scenario there, right? The scenario at the start of this year was Fed's going to keep on raising rates, but it's going to probably stop or slow down remarkably, and inflation was about to drop. This is almost the complete, well, not the complete opposite of that, but now it feels like the Fed might start cutting rates. It's not going to raise rates anymore, and it could even start cutting rates, and inflation might stay higher for a longer period, even with them doing that. And the banking system looks like a bit of a joke. Like it's just a completely different backdrop. Yeah, like it doesn't feel like it did at 1700, because at 1700 it was still very predicated on the inflation print. I don't really care about tomorrow's inflation print now. Like it feels as though the Fed doesn't really have any options.
I think the Fed doesn't have options, but I guess you have two scenarios. You have the scenario where the Fed doesn't increase rates and inflation goes lower by itself. We have the scenario where Fed doesn't increase rates and inflation goes higher. I think both of those are good for crypto. One of them is good for stocks, one of them isn't. But I think it's important. And I think my hunch is I think the market I think crypto still performs better in the scenario where inflation goes lower, because it just takes out some uncertainty. Like even though we see crypto up today, and even though we say, yeah, it's a good hedge against inflation with low interest rates and all this stuff, like it still needs to kind of be proven, and it's still, look, let's face it, the industry is still in its infancy. So I do think the scenario where inflation is lower than expected is probably the one that's the best outcome with regard to stability as well.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think I completely agree with that now. Like I do think lower inflation is probably the best for everything. The main risk now becomes how this spreads. I think maybe to other countries. Like that, there's 600 billion of unrealized losses on bank balance sheets right now. That would have been reduced massively today just with the move in rates, but it'll still be very, very high. And I don't know what it looks like globally, but I can imagine it's very, very bad. Like in Europe and in Japan, particularly in Europe, it's been almost zero rates. Like people have been borrowing at negative rates. That might not make sense to anyone, but it's so much more fucked up in Europe, this trade, than it is in the US. Like that they call it a duration mismatch. And I mean, from being in Europe, Ovi, like what investors were doing. Like they would take out like 100-year bonds at negative interest rates. It was wild. And I think there's going to be a lot of pain as this now leads to some sort of liquidity crisis, I think, in Europe. But I just still don't think that's bad for crypto. Like if you're in a European regional bank right now, it's probably not a bad idea to even get into crypto.
Yeah, I agree. Easier said than done, though. Not everyone has the ability to actually go out there and spend investor money or capital on crypto. So definitely a lot easier said than done.
Yeah, that's true. Like obviously there's a lot of institutional money that can't change, but retail money, I think, in a big way will move.
Yeah. Should we move on to the next thing? The Yuga ordinals?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Are you feeling sorry you didn't get one? Or?
I saw the first installation IRL.
Yeah, that was a nice one, huh?
I don't know.
I think you guys should
let's
keep talking. To be honest, like ETH is pumping the whole show. Like, just keep talking.
Just keep talking about how it's good for crypto. It will just keep going. It is still pumping. It's almost at 1690 now.
Wow,
Jeez.
ETH's at 1700.
Is it actually 1700?
Are you kidding me right now? Are you seriously?
Let me move to Binance.
You're not serious, right?
But like,
oh my god,
this is what I was talking about at the start. Is that high or is that low in this scenario? I know obviously it's high for the day, and I don't think you should be FOMOing in at like 15% higher on a day or something like that. But this is a very, very different. This is what I keep on saying. It's very, very pivotal last 48 hours. Macro has done a complete 180. the 2-year moved 110 bips. That's like unheard of in 48 hours. I don't know if that's really low now, particularly when the drivers are things that make crypto look so obvious. This feel like if I was to take a step back and I thought crypto would trade in the 1K to maybe 2.5K range for the course of 2023, no matter what happened, just because the Fed was going to have to, would have to be a slowly moving policy change. This feels like it could be a very different scenario, right? Like the tails of it going higher are
much fatter.
Are now more, they're much fatter than they were. So the idea that this could run, it could easily run here. It could easily run.
Yeah.
But again, I feel like just doing the Kanye meme at the end, just like what? Who knows?
But I don't know though.
Yeah, I don't know though. It's just only your life savings, but.
In case of an investigation.
Yeah, in case. Do I have that? Is it on the?
It's on the GM Jams, I think.
It's on the GM Jams for sure.
Is it on the GM Jams?
What are your thoughts on the 12 folds? I think we haven't seen them all. I think there's a screenshot that's going around, of course, of like a lot of them that look similar. But it was said in the early thread by Figgy that it was 25 sets of 12. So it's funny when people are like surprised about something to me in the space, but when like everything was already laid out, like we knew some of them would be similar. They literally said it. Now you could argue that a lot of the squiggles are similar. A lot of a couple of the Fidenzas are the same, or not the same, similar. Even punks or even apes have literal one-to-one replicas. Only the background is different. Now maybe it's not the same level of art as like your typical art block. But, I don't think it's also like an end-all be-all type of end of the world, holy fuck. Like last week, everyone was bullish because of the narrative as being the Yuga Labs ordinal, and now people are bearish because they don't like the art. But what happened to the bullish thesis that they had last week? So I just thought that was funny. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of the artwork, but that's subjective. But I'm still a fan of everything going on the ordinal front.
Ordinal's artwork is always going to be bad, though, right? Because of the limitations on inscribing it directly to Bitcoin, right? That's why it's all 8-bit art, and it's never going to look like an art block style piece, I think. But I think you have to call a spade a spade. It's bad. It doesn't look that good. It looks kind of strange, and I think people are there's going to be some jokes that people are paying 50 grand for this. Like if you showed this to somebody outside of crypto and said this cost you, I mean, how much did they end up trading for? They had like roughly 50K.
Yeah, it was there was 2.25 ETH Bitcoin, so 30 ETH.
I can imagine people being like joking about it, but I think people weren't buying it for the art. I don't think. Like even beforehand, it wasn't like this looked like the most revolutionary thing. I even said at the time it looked like a PC screensaver.
There was only one of them that was short ahead. Tropo hit it on the nail. He's like, "You guys are buying this with only one revealed." Like he was actually right about that. So when people complain about the art now, I'm just like, blah. Like why are you guys like? Yeah.
They weren't buying it for the art. They were buying it because it was.
No,
they thought it'd be historically. They thought it would be historically significant because it's Yuga Labs, and who knows what this means down the line. But and that might still be the case. So I think the main reason why people were buying it was not because of the art. The art being questionable doesn't really change stuff.
Do you think it looks to me like it's some sort of code or something? I don't know. Like it looks like there's a bit more to it than meets the eye. I don't know if either of you thought that or got that vibe.
I mean, you're the artist of the crew. What do you think?
I don't know.
I think it could be a code, but you can only really have a code once, right? On ordinals. Maybe it is. I doubt it is, if I'm honest. I doubt it is. I think it's just the art.
Yeah.
I think it's just the art. Speaking of which, I ran into Figgy, who's the artist behind it, the founder of 10KTF, and the head of content at Yuga at the Beeple event. It's a really cool guy. But in general, it's like whether people like the art or not, it's up to them. I did like Sergito's tweet. I think the shit posts on Twitter are always funny, right? Like even sometimes like when I get some hate here and there, like I find some of even the hate towards me like really hilarious. So like I found like some of the shit posts were really funny. Not gonna lie. Twitter really stays undefeated.
Well, what's next for it then? Is it going to be like an access token to more things, or that's just is what it is?
No, I think that's it. I think like it's like you bought that, and I mean, here's your inscription. I don't think there's more to it. It was just a project that some of them decided to take on, per what I heard from Illa, Twitter space, where most of the Yuga team wasn't aware. It's just like some of them did it, right? And then it's super cool for them to do something like that. I'm trying to see how we can do some ordinal stuff on Bitcoin with Rug Radio. Personally, been talking to a few of the folks out there in their expertise to see maybe we can inscribe some really cool snippets that are iconic from our shows here and there. But you are again constrained and restricted by how much you can actually upload into the chain. But I'm still like really excited about like whatever's happening there. Actually, when are you gonna have an auction there? I would love to see one of yours on Bitcoin. I think that would be really cool.
I've got to figure it out. I don't want to just do something for the sake of doing it. But I want to think of a cool idea for it. So stay tuned.
Your thread about your process of the art is really fucking cool, by the way.
Thanks.
I thought that was and I see Vertical Crypto Art down there. Shout out to them. Love him.
Yeah, that one, we finally got the auction up for it. It took a long time to create, probably one of the most difficult things that I've done so far. So I'm definitely appreciative of the opportunity, but also glad it's out there and it's up there. So I'll pin the thread if anyone wants to have a read of it. What's next? You know what I massively underestimate Farouk is really good at? Filling in the like awkward silences or the blank gaps. I guess that's a skill I'm not very good at that. Yeah. And thanks guys for not saying anything just to make it even more awkward. I think we lost Farouk.
That was a good guess. That was a good one.
Appreciate that. I think we've lost Farouk now. He must be in the air. Next, I had annoyingly, the next thing we were going to talk about was the Beeple event at Charleston, but I guess we just lost Farouk. But is anyone in the audience that was at the event wants to request so we can get like a lowdown of everything that happened? Maybe we don't have anyone who was there.
It looked like a smash hit though, right? Like they had people like performing. He did like a piece live, right? It looked really neat.
My the thing that I thought was the coolest was we've lost Mando as well. It's just you and me, Golden.
Let's go.
What was I going to say? I think the thing that was the funniest thing was that they actually had, I don't know if they're like waxed statues or actors of like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and like Kim Jong-un and stuff, but I thought that was pretty hilarious.
And Bezos, right? Like Farouk took some selfies and people really thought that he was with the people that he pictured with. Like they must have been pretty good wax statues, but I wonder what that was all about. I mean, I feel like with Beeple there's always more to it, right? Like he put stuff out there and there was a lot, like I'm sure his studio launch had a lot of things going on, but I always feel like there's more to it, like another layer that people aren't considering because most of the public hasn't even been there, like I bet there's a lot of background stuff going on with that.
Yeah, for sure. We got Darren up here. Were you in Charleston, Darren?
Yeah, I was. It was pretty awesome.
Nice.
It beat expectations, to be perfectly honest.
Give us the full lowdown. What happened? What was the event like from start to finish?
From start to so you walked into the front section, which was just a whole like probably 6 different rooms, different installations, visual, audio. Really cool, interesting people. Everybody was like very good looking and sort of sophisticated. And then the doors opened up to the back room, which would have been the coolest club that you probably have ever seen. Like if there was an event there with thousands of people, it would have been the sickest thing. Screens everywhere, everybody's art being displayed. And then at like 10:30, 10:45, people came out, did a live every day, and everybody was just like jammed trying to see him. And if you were facing the other way, I'm kind of short, so I had no chance of seeing it. So I was watching the screens. That's when like the POAP came up that was limited. And then all of a sudden from the ceiling, these printers just started dropping paper. So his literal airdrop. And you saw all these sophisticated people go from good looking to savages within like 10 minutes. It was pretty crazy.
That's hilarious. Wait, so was the airdrop like an airdrop of the everyday that he did, or just like a random airdrop?
It was like he was doing something different with technology where he was quickly coming up, and then like every couple of seconds, a clip of the things that he was using, the tools that he was using, those are the ones that would drop out. So those pieces of paper were additioned. They were numbered. In the beginning, it was calm and people got like a nice crisp piece of art. By the end, like you couldn't get a non-crumpled one.
That's incredible. So you just like scan the QR code or whatever, and then it like takes you to a mint link, and then still a seed phrase.
No, there were some of them had like a yellow border with a red dot, and it said like this is redeemable for an NFT. Like see somebody at the end of the night.
Wow.
And there were only 50 of those.
Okay. Wow, that's pretty sweet.
It was pretty crazy.
That's cool.
It sounds like a pinata for degens. Like everybody just scrambling to get stuff.
Oh, it was. And like being short, I had no chance of getting anything. It was just like, whatever. I'm out.
You and me both there. I probably would have missed it as well. Did you see any of like the lookalikes walking around? Like,
no, there were probably 20 of those guys. Those masks that they were wearing were insane. Yeah. It was borderline like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible, like ripping one of those off.
Shit.
They were
insane.
They were crazy. The eyes were really buggy.
I saw like the most hilarious video of someone who was acting as Mark Zuckerberg, and he was like had the hoodie up and was like kind of like walking around awkwardly. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, so like the Mark Zuckerbergs, the Warhols, they all had like different outfits and different facial expressions also. So like it was just crazy.
That was hilarious. I think the Mark Zuckerberg one would have really freaked me out if I was there, because I would have done a double take and just be like, what the actual fuck? And he was just like, I don't know if you guys have seen the video, and I'll try and find the link and pin it, but he's just like, it's like this guy who's like walking around in this hoodie, being like a complete social recluse, and like kind of like standing in the corner and then like walking around very like awkwardly. It was definitely very, very creepy.
Yeah. And the physicals, the physical displays that he has are just incredible.
So what's the deal there? Was it just like a full, like it seemed like all the surrounding walls were basically screens, and there was maybe even like a screen on the ceiling or something? Or
I didn't see no screens on the ceiling. The front, like I said, it was basically divided into two sections. The front section was like your typical gallery, and there were physicals, like Human One, like that big huge piece. He had a couple of those there. Yeah. But not Human One, like a different thing. Like one was basically his version of hell. It was very trippy to watch.
Yeah, that sounds insane. Sounds like I had massive FOMO looking at all the videos and photos over the weekend. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it, but sounds like it was definitely one of the most interesting NFT events so far this year.
Yeah, and Charleston's a cool city.
Yeah. So what was the play there? Did everyone like hang out at this event and then go out afterwards, or?
No, I'm more of a recluse, so I was, at the end I was just like, I'm ready to go home. It was my son's birthday. I was on a 5 a.m. flight, so I was just ready to go to bed.
Fair enough.
Did they drop any alpha going forward? Like, was there any plans for the studio, or did they say about any upcoming events or anything?
He's alluded to, like, I've been on the holders calls and stuff. He's alluded to that he wants it to be an event space for all different artists and the go-to place for NFTs. But beyond that, there was no like 10KTF alpha. There was nothing. It was just really people focused. No Yuga alpha, nothing.
Yeah, that's sorry, I'm just trying to get Mando back up here. That sounds awesome. It's actually, I kind of like that, because everyone's been like, oh, it's gonna be a Beeple PFP, like what's going on 10KTF and all this kind of stuff. It's actually it's quite cool to see that it was just like an art focused event, with just people and a bunch of artists being exhibited as well. Like I saw a lot of tweets from artists being like, "Hey, this is insane! Like my thing is like up on the big screen and stuff," which is really cool.
Yeah, seeing like the X copy one when he did the X copy display was incredible.
I didn't see which X copy piece was it. I didn't actually see that one.
Every piece in the
really?
main club room, every wall, every pillar was screens. It was floor to ceiling screens, and even the tables. There were couches and the tables. The tabletops were all screens.
Jeez, wow!
So it was every piece of X copy everywhere.
That's insane. Well, I'm definitely going to have to figure out how to get there next year. It was just a tough one to go to in between Paris and then there's like NYC next month. So I decided couldn't make the trip out there. But sounds like everyone was there and it was a good one. All the videos and photos looked amazing over the weekend.
Yeah, very cool. Basta, I'll go on mute, or you could take me off if you want.
Yeah, all good. Appreciate you coming out, Darren. Cheers.
Thanks, man. Cheers.
We got you back, Mando?
I think so. I'm sorry. I thought Farouk was there because I had to go park the car, and then he seems to have dropped off at exactly the same time. But one of those things.
Hey, it's all right.
I see you.
I was well. Golden and I were well equipped to keep it going. So
yeah, yeah. Charleston looked good, right? These smaller events, they always look the best. It just feels like you get to meet more people, like properly. I think Farouk had a great time, right? And I know a couple other people who went there. But yeah, of what I got of that conversation, there just seemed to be that craziness around the airdrop, like people were just going nuts for it. But
yeah, that's exactly what Darren was saying. But it sounds like it was like they had some pretty amazing displays of art and stuff. So I don't know. Would you go next year, based on what you've heard?
Well, when we were on Wrecked Radio, there was talk about having a Wrecked Guy style casino there, which I thought would be a lot of fun.
With a bit more time, we could do that next year.
Happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely. That sounds good. Well, I think we can move on to the last bit of our show. And we have our friends from Good Society. So welcome aboard, guys. Thanks for dropping by. How are you guys doing?
Oh, hi. Yeah, really well, actually. I wasn't expecting to talk now, but that's all good.
Well, I saw you guys request. I saw you guys get up here. So I was like, why not? Let's just have a smooth transition into it.
Oh, amazing. Thank you.
But yeah, we'll why don't we just start off by the question we always ask is like, who or what is Good Society, and just tell us about yourselves a little bit.
Yeah, well, basically, we're an environmental awareness initiative. So we're creating awareness of environmental issues and social issues, but utilizing art, NFTs, Web3, technology, documentaries, film, fashion, whatever we can really to engage people in those issues in a way that they kind of understand and want to kind of hear about them. So yeah, we've been doing lots of different art exhibitions over the past 3 years. Actually, we did a massive art exhibition on billboards in 2020 during the first lockdown, because we were supposed to have a real life exhibition for Plastic Free July, which is now happens all throughout July, and there's loads of awareness that's created about plastic pollution. So we were supposed to have a real life exhibition then, and obviously we couldn't because of lockdown and everything. So I kind of left it, and all the artists had done all this amazing work, and everybody had been working on it for the last 6 months. But so we just left it, and then at the last minute, I spoke to a billboard company that supports work around the oceans, and I asked them if we could put all the art up on the billboards, and they were like, yes. And I was like, whoa, that's incredible. So they basically plastered all the art across the billboards for the whole of July in 2020. And it then became this like outdoor art exhibition / campaign, creating awareness of plastic pollution in the oceans. And it was like super cool and amazing. And it was like, they said like 20 million people would see it, whether they saw it like subconsciously or consciously. So it was like out of this world crazy. So we've been doing that for the last 3 years. And then last year we partnered with Hedera actually, because we found through our research, they were like super sustainable and eco-friendly. So we partnered with them, and we did a big exhibition across 4 countries on billboards for Plastic Free July again, with loads of cool artists. And we did like a virtual exhibition where you could go in with your VR headset, like in a little mini metaverse on the Hedera network. and we did an auction of the NFTs, and a lot of the artists were quite well known, but they'd never made NFTs before. So they all kind of minted their first NFTs, and then we auctioned them to raise money for an oceans charity. So that's the kind of stuff we've been doing.
That sounds amazing. So wait, are there billboards all over the world, or are they just in the UK, or whereabouts are they based when you guys did it?
Yeah. So basically in 2020, it was just in the UK. That was like the first time we did it. And I kind of just emailed the billboard company in the UK, and they have like sites all over the world. But I just spoke to the UK, and they were like, basically, they put them in like London, Birmingham, Manchester, Glasgow, Edinburgh, Newcastle, like all over the UK, like these giant epic billboards. So there was like about 50 of them. And they're like, and they're screens, so they show the art. The art just plays all day, kind of every day, in between other stuff.
Yeah, that's amazing. I was just looking at your website, or the link from your Twitter profile, and it's like this highway with like 2 gigantic screens, which I think this is in Canary Wharf, right? Looking at it, I think I see the Barclays building over there. This is in London.
Yeah, that's Canary Wharf, and near the HSBC
right.
and all the banks. And yeah, I actually, in 2020, I didn't see it because we're in lockdown. But the next year, I made sure to go there, and I was just like blown away by the size of it. And actually, my piece of art was on one of those billboards as well. So that was just like incredible.
That's so cool. Well, both Mando and I actually used to work in Canary Wharf, so I haven't been back there since we'd stopped working there. But this is a good reason to do that. Definitely a good reason to do that, to go check them out. But no, that's really cool. So is the idea that the artwork that you guys display, is the idea that the artwork is themed around sustainability and with like an eco-friendly theme, or is it just like any artwork and then you guys have a little caption underneath? Like, what's the idea behind the stuff that you actually display?
Yeah, exactly. So everything has like an environmental theme or a social theme. So it's kind of like utilizing art for good, and kind of utilizing the power of art to kind of, create conversations and discuss all these issues, whether it's touching on environmental issues or social issues like women's rights or, inequality and everything.
Got it. I see. I have to say, it's nice to have something that's environmentally focused be in the NFT world, because, and I know you touched on it when you guys mentioned Hedera, but it's obviously been like a big criticism of definitely Bitcoin, but maybe at some points ETH has obviously changed now since they did the merge. But the environmental impacts has been a big criticism of a lot of the stuff that we do in the space, which I think a lot of it is unjustified, because I think people just assume that the energy that Bitcoin mining consumes is what happens across everything in Web3, which isn't necessarily the case. So it is actually quite refreshing to see something that's actually has like a eco-friendly focus and actually tap into the world of NFTs and digital art to push that narrative and raise that awareness. So I think it's cool to actually see you guys do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel like a lot of people still don't really understand this side of it. And there's a lot of kind of negativity towards everything in terms of how environmentally unfriendly it is. But because, I'm a creative director, I work in design, technology, and I'm also, I've done a lot of projects around environmental awareness. I really wanted to, step into Web3 and NFTs, obviously. So kind of during the pandemic, I was able to do lots of research into it. And through all the networks, I just kind of discovered Hedera. And I was like, Hedera is by far the most eco-friendly, sustainable kind of network. Basically, they're carbon neutral. So they're not even carbon, they're surpassing carbon. They're carbon negative. Yeah. So so surpassing carbon neutral. And, their energy just uses basically the transactions on the network. The energy utilizes maybe 1,000th of the energy that a Visa card transaction uses. So it's crazy. And they're proof of stake. So they're kind of advanced, to Bitcoin. And yeah, I just feel like you can't really say there's anything wrong with that. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? In terms of the kind of sustainability and environmentally friendly side of it. And also the company really has a really keen environmental mindset. When you talk to all of them, they always try to kind of, involve that in everything that they do. So yeah, I was happy to discover that, and I was just like, oh my god, yes, I can step into this world now. So
Yeah, that's brilliant.
yeah.
So what was your background? Like, what were you doing before you stepped into this stuff in Web3?
Yeah, so I was doing creative direction, and I worked for like, decades on like magazines, like different magazines at Condé Nast, fashion magazines, and in branding and advertising. And I did a lot of work in environmental issues where we created awareness of plastic pollution. So in 2010, we had built this boat made from recycled plastic, which took us 5 years to make, called the Plastiki. And we built it in San Francisco. And then we sailed it from San Francisco to Sydney across the Pacific for 4 months. And it created awareness of plastic pollution. And it was all like over the news, kind of like they were talking about it. It was kind of one of the first things that was accepted by the media in terms of this subject matter, because we kind of captured everyone's kind of imagination by doing it in a creative way. So yeah, I've done lots of campaigns. So we did that with the Plastiki, and then we worked with Levi's, and we helped them to create awareness of water, and like we did a campaign around like water saving issues, and helped them make a collection of clothes, the Waterless collection, that they hardly used any water. So just working with different brands in that way and different projects to kind of highlight how they can be more environmentally friendly, or how they are really. Yeah. So lots of creative stuff.
Amazing. Well, it sounds like you had the right background to naturally find yourself here, which is probably what you did. But so tell us, so you guys have what's running a competition or a contest, which I believe is called the Earth Day Art Contest. You want to tell us a little more about that and how it's going to work?
Yeah, exactly. So basically, we've partnered with Hedera again. We're doing an art exhibition across the billboards again throughout April. So it's specifically for Earth Day, which is April the 22nd. But now April is called Earth Month. So it's going to be live across April on the billboards across different countries. And so what happens with the billboards, they basically kind of tell us at the last minute which countries it can go into, kind of depending on space and everything. But last year we had it across 4 countries, in the UK, the Netherlands, Denmark, and then in New York in Times Square. So it'll be a kind of similar vibe to that. And yeah, so the art and it's a mixture of artists, typographers, illustrators, and digital artists. And they've all created work around environmental issues. And this time, the work has a really clear message to kind of educate and inspire and motivate the people that see it to become more environmentally friendly in their day-to-day actions. So each art, if you can kind of visualize it, will be kind of like a visual, but it will also have like something written within it that inspires people in terms of this issue. And that will go across all the billboards. And you guys are going to be part of it, actually.
Brilliant. How are we going to be part of it? I'm just going to tell it like it is and be upfront.
So Jen, I don't know if Jen's on here, but Jen, like you're kind of the creative person in your team, is basically putting together a scene that works for the exhibition using your style of like PFPs and everything. And so she's going to put together 3 different visuals, and then I think your community is going to decide which one will go up on the billboard as part of the exhibition.
Wow, that sounds very cool. It feels like that's something that Farouk probably knows but didn't tell me, or he told me and I wasn't listening. So one of those 2 things. But I'm glad that I'm now aware of it, because that does sound very cool.
Where is Farouk?
Farouk, he was in Charleston for the People thing, and unfortunately his flight, he was supposed to be back for this, but his flight got cancelled or delayed. So you just missed him, actually, just as he came on. He had to, his flight took off, so he was here for the first part of the show. But okay, awesome. That sounds amazing. So anyone can enter. I'm right in saying that?
Exactly. Yeah, anyone can enter. So we've got the exhibition side, right. And then I just thought, like, this year, we always kind of pick the artist or whatever, or they say they want to be part of it. So I just thought I'd open it up to the community, because it's such an amazing thing to be able to see your art on at such a large scale on a billboard. So yeah, I launched a competition last week, which is using Bounty Block, which is kind of like a competition gaming site on the Hedera network. So basically you can upload your creative through that site, and literally anyone can enter, and there's just like a little brief where people can, like, it just helps them to kind of like, helps them with the work that they're going to create, because we want everyone to create their visual, whether it's like, digital illustration, photography, film, whatever, pencil drawing or painting, whatever it is. We want them to create this visual, but we want them to have like a key kind of message within that visual somehow, to just kind of, so it's not abstract in that sense. It has like that key message within the art that can help people understand what it's talking about, if that makes sense. So yeah, they can just enter via that Bounty Block link, actually, which is pinned on my Twitter post.
Awesome.
And so you guys are gonna, like, basically, I think you guys are gonna create something, and then also I think your community is gonna have a chance to create something as part of this. I think the guys are gonna post details about this, like on the Twitter or in Discord or something.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, I'm sure that all that stuff will be organized. So if you guys want to enter as part of the community, I think that information will be in the Discord and Twitter soon. I've also just pinned your tweet, which I think is the one that starts with our biggest competition yet. So I think that's the one with the link and all the details. So yeah, I think we have the nice thing about this show is we have a ton of artists who are listening, and a ton of very, very talented artists as well. And I think to have your art displayed on like a big billboard in front of 100,000 people, potentially hundreds of thousands of people, I think you guys are saying.
Yeah. Well, basically, it's like millions of people see like the billboards throughout the month. So it's crazy high number of people that see them. But each billboard, like those billboards in Canary Wharf, like they say that, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people see them every day. Like, it's just crazy, the stats. So yeah, so even if your work is only on one billboard, at least like a few 100,000 people will see that over the month. So it's amazing. And I mean, the best thing is just you seeing your own art on a billboard. That's by far the best thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's probably one of the best experiences you can have. Because I think, especially in this space as well, so many of us are used to just like seeing your art on your phone or your laptop or your iPad or whatever. So actually seeing it blown up on a big screen is such an amazing experience. And it's a good opportunity to get your art out there in front of the eyes of like loads and loads of people. So just sounds like a really an amazing opportunity. And I think there are so it looks like there are 3 winners, but maybe there are more people who have their art displayed. Like, how does that work exactly?
Yeah, so basically, what I've done is I've set like that general public competition, which is on Bounty Block. So that's my kind of competition for everyone. So there's 3 winners. So out of those 3 winners, 2 winners will have their art displayed on the billboards, and they'll receive some like HBAR, and they'll also have like a mentoring session with someone, depending on kind of what style of art they have, if they want. And then that's kind of the main general exhibition. And then like with you guys, you'll have like an internal competition within your Discord, where your community can create art, and then you'll somehow decide who is the winner from your community, and their art will go on a billboard as well as part of the exhibition, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. That sounds amazing. Great. So there's a big opportunity for our community, I guess, to get involved and create some stuff. And the art, does it have to be like a new piece that's environmentally themed? I guess that's the idea of this whole thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. So all the art, we want to kind of utilize the power of art to kind of like talk about this issue. So all the art kind of has to connect in, obviously, with Earth Day, Earth Month, what it means, environmental issues. It can kind of, it can just be a statement about the world. It can be a statement about kind of It can be inspiring people to live a more eco-friendly life. It can be educating them. So whatever visual, obviously the visual is going to be whatever you guys want it to be. It could be abstract, but then within that visual, it has some kind of message within it that is clear, you know, so it clearly says, you know, it's clearly inspiring action, whether that's like, you know, someone within the visual that holds a sign that says act now, or do you know what I mean? Those kind of funny, catchy phrases, or somebody's like, you know, like the PFP characters are out in nature, running around nature, and they're kind of talking about how you should be connecting, how really important it is to connect back to nature or spend time in nature. So it can pick up on any kind of environmental theme, but clearly have that message in it, so people will immediately understand, you know, what you're trying to say.
That's brilliant. Sounds amazing. Well, look, thanks a lot for coming on and telling us about your background, about the Good Society, and also this fantastic opportunity for people to have their art displayed on this great big screen, and for a good cause at that as well. So appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, I just want all the artists like on here to kind of like create something and enter it. Yeah, because it's like for such a good cause.
There we go. So let's try and get as many entries as we can. It'll be awesome. I actually love it when we do
Amazing.
like we put Web3 to good use for stuff like this. So it's awesome to see. So
exactly, and you should do something as well.
Yeah, I will. So when is the deadline again?
It's like 2 weeks. There's 2 weeks. Actually 2 weeks, and obviously you don't have to overcomplicate stuff. It could be quite simple. Do you know what I mean? So don't overcomplicate it. It can be something simple. Just depends what you want to do, you know.
Yeah, as long as the message is powerful, then that's what counts.
Exactly.
Brilliant.
Exactly.
Awesome.
All right, amazing.
Well, yeah, thanks so much for your time. And with that, I believe we can call it a day with 1 minute to go on the show. So thanks everyone for tuning in as usual. It's always a pleasure to come in and be the main host, because I don't usually speak much. And tomorrow you guys will have Farouk and possibly Mando back. But with that, have a great day, everyone, and enjoy the week.
And it's a beautiful day to have a beautiful day. GM. On this beautiful day, good morning to Web3 with Morocco, Sep, and Mando. Tune in live at 10:30, and it's all on Rock Radio. It's a beautiful day. Have a beautiful day. GM. Rock Radio.